Well, that's how it went down on the floor of the Senate yesterday. But suddenly it does appear that there have been a lot of political movement, which we'll be delving into. And this morning we're being joined by former president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Ayuba Waba, joins us now as it would seem that the race for 2027 heats up. It does appear that there is a movement for credible election gathering steam. And a lot of people are wondering, what is that about? Comrade, are you leaving, will I say, comradeship? We're leaving labor matters now to join mainstream politics. Is that what is happening?
No, that's not the issue. All over the world, trade unions and labor have remained a very strong pillar of democracy. And that is a global takeoff. What we are merely saying is that to consolidate our democracy, we must commit ourselves to electoral and constitutional reforms that places power of political leadership recruitment in the hands of the people. To ensure also the health of our constitutional democracy, critical and mandatory electoral reforms are needed before the 2027 election. So actually that's what the whole movement is all about. And all of us know that from time immemorial, trade unions and particularly NLC have played a major role in trying to push for electoral reform. You could recall that the NLC and its civil society allies led a national campaign for electoral reform. This came on the heels of the horrendous 2007 general election, where full results were announced, as we are still trickling into the polling units. You remember the Justice Uwe-led Electoral Reform Committee, which NLC was part of the committee, and it made a very laudable recommendation to set Nigerian electoral parliament on firm grounds. Some of the recommendations you could remember includes a democratic and citizens-led transparent appointment of INEC chairman, which was thrown out then by the ruling party. You remember the issue of unbundling INEC into more manageable and focused agencies and the establishment of Electoral Offences Commission. You also remember the introduction of proportional representation with dedicated seats in the parliament for vulnerable groups such as women, which is now gaining traction. So these are the whole issues, because all of us must be concerned about the health of our democracy, and basically we must play our role. So that's what the group and the larger civil society allies we are pushing for.
So if this is about electoral reforms, what precisely about electoral reforms right now are you unhappy about? Or would I say our electoral act? Because I know that at the end of the day, what this will end up with or end up in is an amendment to our electoral act. We know that that is already up for amendment. Some people are saying we're pushing it too close because 2026 is already here. We ought to have had a situation where the Electoral Act has been amended. We have elections to experiment it with, especially the changes that we're seeking to make. And then when the general elections come by, then perhaps we'll be doing, will I say, finalization of all that needs to be done. But for a number of people, while they're looking at those amendments, what amendments is your group particular about?
Well, we are looking at some of the recommendations, very laudable recommendations that came out from Justice Uwe Electoral Committee report, which was actually thrown out. I mentioned 3 of them. But basically, it is our concern that our belief is that violence should not actually determine electoral outcome. 2, burden of electoral financing needs to be examined because you have seen that money is playing a lot of rules in the electoral process. So certainly the burden of electoral financing needs to be examined. Courts should not also determine electoral outcome. We have seen also in many cases where courts will actually pronounce winners, and where people lost, they will say, let's go to court or let's meet to court. So the reform should be that courts will not actually determine our electoral outcome. 2, the issue of deployment of technology, because in the 5th industrial revolution, certainly technology will play a major role. So it is our belief that deployment of technology to ensure that the transmission of results is done in real time from polling units certainly will assist very greatly. And electoral reforms generally will build public confidence in the electoral process. And this is what we are pushing for alongside Nigerians, because you remember that in the last general election, some glitches were actually observed or noted. Even INEC confirmed that. So those are the problems. It should be a dynamic process, and therefore every election cycle we should be able to identify challenges and problems, and we should be able to fix them before the next cycle election. Doing it very close to the election also is not helpful because time is of essence. We are approaching 2016, 2027, 2026 now, and we have less than 2 years actually to the next cycle of general elections. So it is expected that time is of essence, and we should push all those reforms. I think Parliament should actually drive the process alongside with the citizens, but time is of essence. But broadly, those that we think will help the electoral process and certainly will build people's confidence, public confidence, and we then consolidate our democracy.
How high up a priority would you say electoral reforms are for the National Assembly? Because we know that a number of other issues have come up in recent times, matters of the economy, security topping the list. Are electoral reforms really high up the priority list for the National Assembly?
Certainly, that is what we are pushing, to make the electoral reform and constitutional reform, which will go pari passu, as a priority. Because the health of our democracy also greatly will enhance governance. It will also address the issue of insecurity, and also will bring about the issue of development, because the totality of it is that we must actually get leaders that are truly elected, and when you do that, you know that people will actually have a lot of confidence. So basically, I think it's to reset their priority. That's what the group is trying to push for, that they should also prioritize the constitutional amendment and also the electoral reform. The two must go together pari passu, because the panacea for peace is also to have a democracy that is stable, a democracy that is progressive, truly government of the people by the people.
So if you were to give them a time frame by which all of these reforms and the act is amended, when would you say we need to be done by?
Well, I think they should be able to hit the ground running, and it's expected that before the first quarter of next year, we should be able to see some real progress, and possibly in the second quarter of next year, we should have a new electoral reform so that people will become conversant with it. Even the electoral empire will now look at it very well. Part of the reform issue is also even the funding of INEC. Because, you know, in every cycle of election, we have had the issue of, funds are not released in real time. So we need to also look at all of this. So basically, for us to have a successful election in 2027, all of this issue and the totality of the issues, including the glitches that were actually observed in the 2023 election, all of this need to take place in good time so that INEC can also prepare.
In the wake of the appointment of the new INEC chairman, Professor Amupito, this issue of electoral reforms had come up again because a lot of people believe that the president should not be the appointing authority. But the president did not go down that route. I mean, he was the appointing authority. We heard the Council of State approved it, and then the National Assembly did their own screening and confirmed him. So a lot of people have, and people say they haven't quite heard what the president's agenda is with regards to electoral reforms. They haven't seen it top his own agenda, his own priority list. And we've seen before now the National Assembly doing a lot of work on electoral reforms and then passing it on to the executive arm of government, and it doesn't get signed. In the last administration, it took 2 attempts before the president eventually appended his signature to the reform work that had been done. So how optimistic are you that even if the National Assembly were to meet the deadline of the first quarter, that we would see the president append his signature to the work that has been done?
One first is that, as I said, even in 2009, when we actually pushed for electoral reform before we got the Justice Ways, it was not actually easy. It was broadly a campaign led by the NLC and its civil society allies. It was a national campaign for electoral reform. And this was then what actually pushed the government to have the Justice Ways Electoral Reform Committee in place, of which NLC was a member. And that actually sets Nigeria's electoral firmament on firm grounds. As I said, which you confirm, part of the very critical recommendation of Justice Way committee report is the appointment of INEC chairman. Although it was thrown out even by the ruling party then, but I think the conversation have arose again in order actually to give some credibility to our electoral process. In the Justice Way Electoral Committee report, it was recommended that a democratic, citizen-led and transparent appointment of INEC chairman should actually be part of our electoral reform process because it is important to make it truly an independent empire that will have the confidence of everybody, but the citizens and the political parties, which I think those are some of the issues that have not been passed through, and among others, which I'm sure will try to push around, is a process. And basically, I think our political elites must realize that the health of our democracy is when we have a process in place that can deliver a free, fair, and credible election. That even the international committee and all of us will actually say yes. The process is credible. The process is transparent. It's fair. It's one man, one vote, one woman, one vote. And that is actually what will bring in place good governance. Because when people know that they are fully elected, basically they will strive also to work for the people, and the people will have a lot of confidence in them. So I think it's about the totality of good governance that we are pushing for this reform, and you can see the credibility of the civil society allies and Labour that is involved in all of this. And globally, as I said, Labour remains a very strong pillar of democracy. So basically, we'll continue to push, and hopefully, I think our political elites must realize that this is actually something that will strengthen our democracy and something that will even address some of the challenges that we are passing through, the issues of insecurity, the issues of development. I think the totality of it is that the whole gamut of it can be accommodated in this electoral reform process.
Well, quite a number of laudable reforms are really being pushed, and one of them that really stand out is this idea of finishing all court cases before whoever is elected is sworn in. I know some people have questioned the practicality of that, but it is something that has really gained momentum in recent times, that court cases must be rounded off before elected appointees are sworn in. We also see this matter of electoral financing, but people have questioned how practical is it, you know, to put a cap on what it is that politicians can spend and who exactly is monitoring, because INEC says they are overburdened, even with electoral offenses, you know, crimes committed around or on election day. INEC finds it a big burden, and they have already said, look, we should have another body that, you know, sees to the prosecution of that, because they cannot add it to their already big, let's say, list of things to do. So for you, some of these reforms which you're pushing for, especially the ones that still border around INEC, how confident are you that we won't just pass them into laws? Because sometimes we do have the laws, but there is no one body to seem to enforce these laws. So how optimistic are you that if it does sail through again, that we will be able to implement them as, you know, has been passed?
Yes. You know, in the reform that we think will be ideal, which also some of the issues you have highlighted about the issue of court cases are concluded before swearing in, and also the issue of electoral financing. Part of the recommendation of the Justice Way Electoral Committee report is the unbundling of INEC into more manageable and focused agencies. The establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission, which is still on board. And I think INEC, even in the last dispensation under Mahmoud, have actually pushed to have this agency. So when we unbundle INEC, it means that we will have agencies that will have a particular focus, especially this issue of electoral financing, which I think is very, very important. People borrow money to actually prosecute elections. Some actually sell their properties. Some actually get funding from very questionable sources. So I think it's important for us to streamline all of this in the reform process in order to have a process that is seamless and a process that we can fully set is transparency. So I think for me, those are reforms that will look at it very critically. It will be subjected to public debates, and even at the National Assembly, it will actually be subjected to a lot of discussion. But I think all of these very firm reforms that we have referred to were actually in the Justice Way Electoral Committee. And time has come actually for us to revisit some of those things because of the fact that we have seen that they have been part of our problem. You can see how people are buying votes openly. It has been a major issue. Even INEC has confirmed that the security agencies, EFCC and other agencies have confirmed the issue of using money actually to buy votes. It shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be for highest bidder. It should actually be people that are very credible. So it's important. We actually look again at the issue of electoral financing. That's why I think this is part of the whole gamut of reforms that the coalition is pushing for. And I think also the issue of making sure that the court cases are concluded. You have seen in many instances where the court will now come and make pronouncements maybe 2 years into a tenure, and a new person will be sworn in. And that have made the entire process to be disjointed. If it's 4 years and somebody have already benefited 2 years into the term, and then you are coming newly. So I think we need to look at all of these issues in order to make our process seamless, and importantly, it's an avenue to actually address emerging issues. Because at the end of every election cycle, we'll identify issues and challenges that need to be addressed. And therefore, the reform process is actually meant to look at those issues which are challenging, and to try to provide solutions to address them, because problems are meant to be addressed, not to be swept over.
All right, comrade, we certainly will keep tabs with you, because we know that this is a matter that is developing, this issue of electoral reforms, and keeping tabs with it in the National Assembly is something that we certainly will do. So we have to thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, and we wish you all the very best as you pursue these reforms.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a reform for all Nigerians, so we will pursue those reforms to make our electoral process very credible.
Comrade Ayuba Waba is the former president of the Nigeria Labour Congress.